Joining us on the phone, Jon Rothstein from CBS Sports, who was at the UK practice yesterday. John, how are you, sir?
Good, Matt. Good to be with you.
Good to talk with you. John, you saw the practice. You were there. You're the only one that's been there. So tell us, what do you think of the team after watching what was really their first major workout in practice?
Well, I thought that the team was loaded when I saw them yesterday for about 2 hours at the Joe Kraft Center. Just the size at every position is staggering. The depth for this team for the upcoming year, I think, will be unequivocally better than any depth that John Calipari has had since he's been the head coach at Kentucky. And here's the interesting thing, though, Matt. Yesterday's practice did not include Willie Cauley-Stein or Trey Lyles. So the 10 players yesterday that played at Kentucky's practice were good enough to be a formidable team in college basketball, and that didn't include two of potentially the top 5 or 6 players.
That's unbelievable. You made some waves when you tweeted out what you think the starting lineup will be. Probably no one had any disagreement with you about the Harrison twins or Willie Cauley-Stein. I don't really have any disagreement with you about Alex Poythress, but a lot of people were surprised you threw Marcus Lee in over Dakari Johnson or over Karl Towns. What made you put Marcus in that group?
Well, just by going by what we saw last year against Michigan, I think it's clear that if Marcus Lee got regular minutes for Kentucky, he would be a pretty much capable contributor. But I always tend to lean towards a returning veteran over somebody who's a first-year player, and I still think, it remains to be seen which bigs can play together for Kentucky. The surplus of bigs that Kentucky has is unlike any other front court in college basketball this season, and probably any other front court that college basketball has seen in quite some time. But I think, considering the fact that Marcus Lee is coming back for a second year, it gives them a little bit of an inside track. But I got to tell you, the buzz, I think, outside the Kentucky program isn't really palpable right now surrounding Karl Towns. But inside Kentucky's program, the buzz is beyond palpable. And the different thing about Karl Towns versus other big men that have played for Kentucky is he has the ability to extend the defense from the 4 or the 5 spot. He's a skilled big man that's going to be able to bring the opponent's 4 or 5 away from the basket, like a Frank Kaminsky, like a Walter Pitchford, who excelled this past year for Nebraska. So it's a different type of look for Kentucky, and I tweeted this, and I said it because I just made the parallel during practice. It's a little bit like how Channing Frye was when Channing Frye was at Arizona, and obviously since Channing Frye has been in the NBA, a nice pick-and-pop threat from the 4 or the 5 spot.
I really like that comparison a lot. I also like you're the only person that would drop players from Nebraska because that's college basketball as well as anybody I know. All right, so you mentioned Karl Towns. Talk to me a little bit about Lyles didn't play, so about the guys we haven't seen, Ulis and Booker. Did you like those 2 young guards?
Well, I was really impressed with Tyler Ulis' ability to read situations within the defense. He's different in the sense that he is a table setter. He is going to be the person that gets people baskets. And one thing that I think is really going to stand out for Kentucky fans, Tyler Ulis knows how to read defenses in between the 3-point line and the foul line. He knows where to pick his spots, whether it's better to use a lob for a big man, whether it's better to just pull up and take a shot from in between the foul line and the 3-point line. His feel and his ability to shoot the basketball, I think, are beyond what people would expect. And, I said shooting the basketball, and I don't think there's anybody in the gym yesterday, and from what I've heard throughout the summer, that is shooting the basketball better than Devin Booker. It's going to be really tough to keep him off the floor. Teams, are probably going to try and zone Kentucky this season to slow them down because of their size and athletic ability. You won't be able to zone Kentucky if Devin Booker is on the floor.
I like that a lot. That's because people thought that might be the weakness, the shooting. Just a couple of minutes left, but I got 2 more questions. Cal's got 10, 12 guys. You tweeted how much you like Dominique Hawkins and Derek Willis. What's he going to do? He doesn't like to play 12 guys. He likes to play 7 or 8. What's going to happen? How's he going to make it work?
Well, I asked him yesterday after practice, are you almost part psychologist and part coach this year because you're going to have to manage everybody? And he said, look, we just have to be real with our kids, and we now have to really explain that every day in practice is a quote-unquote tryout. Because if somebody isn't performing at a high level, somebody else can come off the bench and really produce regularly with extended minutes. I think the interesting thing is this. I think John Calipari will play 10 at the start of the season. But you know as well as anybody else, when it gets into February and March and you're playing close games on the road, you're probably only going to play 7 or 8 guys. So who will be 9 and 10 in that rotation, I think, is the million-dollar question in Lexington. And I did tweet about Derek Willis and Dominique Hawkins, and I got to tell you this. There are probably 50 to 70 BCS programs that Derek Willis would start for right now. And another thing that people can't forget, Nick Stauskas was slicing up Kentucky like a side of fries in the regional final last year. He had 18 points in the first half, and John Calipari's decision to put Dominique Hawkins on Nick Stauskas in the second half changed the game. I don't think without Dominique Hawkins, Kentucky goes to the Final Four. And Dominique Hawkins, I can tell you this, is a better offensive player than he was at the end of last season. So those guys that are 11 and 12 on the depth chart when everybody's healthy, they're not pushovers.
I wish I had more time to talk to you, but 30 seconds, you and I were in Florida at the Vitale thing with Slice Rorson, who's your buddy. How much are Kentucky fans going to like him? And real quick, what does he bring to Cal staff?
I'll be quick. Slice Rorson in a lot of ways is kind of like, the characters in Glengarry Glen Ross. ABC, always be closing.
He is. I mean, he really is like a character. I love the guy. John, we got to do it when we have more time with you.
By the way, that's why I said that. He was in Glengarry Glen Ross.
I know. I've seen the scene. It was his first ever acting scene, and he's on there with Kevin Spacey and James Woods. We appreciate you. Thank you very much for coming, John.